Shalom Erev Tov from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Lowell Joseph Gallen, a founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in 1981, 40 years ago, and now celebrating our 40th anniversary, 40 years young. Now, for those of you who have listened to our programs before, I've been told very politely that a 13-minute introduction is too long, so this is going to have to be like a minute and 30 seconds, not skip all that other stuff. Listen. This is our monthly drama therapy seminar with the Laura Leadbetter. And our program chair is here, Dr. Les Glassman, Think Yiddish, Dress British, and our special guest panelist, Zorba the Jew, is here. That's a lower left-hand corner. I'm the loudmouth New York Jew. That's meant affectionately. Please.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
And then there is the Laura Leadbetter, who can hear you, but she can't see you because she is on her cell phone in a psychiatric institution. We're going to be talking about that too. She only has 20 minutes, so let me just say the date and the time. Okay, it's Thursday, July 15th, 2021, and it is the 6th day of Av 5781. I've already said too much. Let me hand it over to Les, who's going to introduce Laura, and then we'll talk to you until you have to go. So I'm going to unmute everybody here. Ask all to unmute. Les, it's all yours.
Wow, Lowell, thank you so much. And Lowell, thank you for putting this together, because your connection with Laura goes back many, many years. Right. So Laura, we've had already a few programs with you, and it's just incredible hearing your stories and your,
thank you.
Do. And but I'll just mention just very briefly that you live in the States. You grew up in a circus family environment. Trapeze artist, you were the rodeo, very unusual these days, but because if you ask a lot of kids, especially with the COVID, circus they see on TV, but unfortunately the whole question about a circus and live animals has become very, very topical, and there's those that are for and there are many that are against live animals in the circus, so you're both on different sides, but you were there when it was really happening. Anyway, then you went on to get an MA in counseling, and you're a registered drama therapist. And you co-hosted with Lowell Joseph Gallen, the Laura and Lowell show. It was a few years ago. And I know that it was amazing. You had incredible, guests on your talk. And but now what's happened is that you are working as a drama therapist in many different places. And one of the most amazing places that you are working, you're actually working there today, right now, is in a psychiatric hospital. So I'm sure you must have the most incredible experiences and the people that you've touched, and you've worked in retirement homes, and you've helped so many.
Thank you, Les.
Laura, I'm gonna give over the Zoom floor to you, even if we're here, but if you could just speak to us a little bit about, also some of the incredible people that you've touched their lives in the years of your work and the work as a drama therapist in helping those. So without any further ado, esteemed speaker, Laura Leadbetter. Okay, Laura?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to say I'm very happy to be part of this show.
We're happy too.
Thank you, Lowell. And I just want to say thank you, Les, for everything you just told me. I'm working on my mental health licensure now, and it's a journey, and I'm going to be going from my clinical to another psychiatric hospital in the fall to do my hours. So yes, Lowell and I go back many years, and his father was like a father to me, and our relationship was very, very unique and special, and I miss him terribly, but the memories live on. And Lowell, the dream came true. The show is just blooming. It's going to really be wonderful. We're just getting started, as Al Pacino said. We're just getting.
Where did he say that? Which movie?
Scent of a Woman. Scent of a Woman.
Oh, that movie.
That was an amazing movie. And I love the dancing.
Yes. And, he said, I'm just getting warmed up now. I'm just getting started. Well, that's how we're getting started, and it's a journey. And and drama therapy is unique. And I did a group this morning with my patients, and they really loved it, and it was powerful.
Yeah, Les
Laura,
and Asher don't know that you know Al Pacino and that the doorman's daughter is dating and you know all these people. Actually, I really know them.
And I know that this work is only going to continue to bloom and blossom, and you know, being able to have this opportunity is just, I'm so thankful, and I just want to thank you all for allowing me, and I wish I could spend more time this afternoon. I only have like 10 more minutes before I do my next group. But is there anything you...
Laura, a thought has come to my mind. You know, occasionally that happens to professors. And to advance and to enhance your next level of challenge in terms of passing or getting the necessary materials certification, would it help at all if we either as a group or the people responsible for the Root and Branch Association write to anybody explaining how useful you have been to such a enterprise as this? You know, as part of your experience, your worldly experience, and sharing wonderful insights.
I would love that. I would love that. That's a great idea. I'm renewing my continuing education
I know
units.
you told us that last time. I know. That's what I mean. For them to get supporting documents to indicate your
Thank
excellence.
you. Can you send me the link so I could send you the information?
Well, send asherjmatt@aol.com. You know,
I will send
it.
I'll send an
Okay,
email
Asher.
message to all four of us.
Yeah.
So you'll have my email address, Les's address, and
Right.
Asher's address.
Okay.
Okay.
And just tell
Thank
us
you.
what you need and how to format it so we can
That
all
will
write
help me.
you.
That
What?
Okay, so we going. Actually, there was a lovely idea.
Great idea.
That would be very helpful, and I'll do
That would
that.
be okay. You know, say no more. Yeah.
We'll do it.
Thank
Helping a
you.
damsel in distress, letters.
Yeah.
Okay. So Laura, we know you only have a few more minutes. Could you say something like, you know, you do drama therapy with a very eclectic group of people ranging from whatever normal means, normal spectrum people to people at far ends of the spectrum. You're in a you're in a psychiatric hospital now, or the psychiatric ward of a hospital. Are you dealing with what age group? Are they violent, or is it the non?
They're all different ages, young, old, middle age, you name it. I have a garden variety, and it changes, you know, week to week. So it's always, you know, inviting and invigorating, and I'm just, you know, amazed at the stories and what comes out of this work. It's the right fit for me, and I love working in the nursing homes, don't get me wrong, and I cherish all those memories, but this work, counseling and doing, you know, inpatient and then going to outpatient this fall is going to be a wonderful journey to meet people with addictions that are working on their life and putting their puzzle back together and rebuilding their lives is amazing.
Well, Laura, what you're doing is quite amazing. Laura, if I could just ask you, has it ever been a time that you feared for your life, or that you're nervous going in because you don't know how some of the psychiatric patients might, you know, react to some things that you say? Has that ever happened to you?
I've had some challenges, but I'm good about de-escalating them, and I'm getting support from other staff. So I'm pretty well armed and protected. That's a good question, though, Les.
Well, we are in awe of you because what you're doing is not a simple, it's not simple. And it takes a very special person to do what you do. So we applaud you, really.
You're right. It's not simple.
Okay. Asha or Lowell, if you have any questions or comments.
Going along with that suggestion that you very graciously accepted, maybe the link of the program might be also something that we can forward. I don't know, you know. It's so
I think I think it's a wonderful idea. It's, you know, this is just beginning and building. So
exactly.
I'm open for all ideas.
Beautiful.
Well,
Laura, you are a trailblazer.
You could, of course, the link to the programs we've begun to do together and our show, the Laura and Lower Show. I'll tell you, when Roseanne Barr saw the interview that you and I did with the guy who worked at Roland Bagels, and thank you for the message that even after 9 years, the lady who runs it wants to know how I am, because I would visit my father that summer from the apartment I rented, and I was walk to the Hebrew home. I'd stop for $1.50, got a bagel and coffee, and she still, it's kosher, and she still remembers.
And now she asks about you all the time.
So why did I mention that? I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, so we had that show where the interview we did with the black guy who had been homeless and lived in shelters. He was explaining about the difference between a soup kitchen and a pantry and a shelter.
I remember. Yeah.
And Roseanne saw that and said, that's part of my platform in 2000. What you guys talked to him about what the city was doing to have a social network, safety network, is part of her platform when she ran for president in 2012. She didn't think she could win, but she wanted to make some points. So that got watched. So you can show the people our whole program together. And,
I will.
And then the stuff that we're beginning to do now.
Yeah.
Well, the lady from Roland Bagels sends her love and good wishes for our show.
I'm looking forward to my next coffee and bagel when I'll be in Riverdale.
Oh, when you come to visit to Riverdale, you'll come up to the health club because she opened a business in our health club selling all kinds. Yeah, bagels, cream cheese. She still has the business down on Riverdale Avenue, but she's now in our health club working away and doing really well.
Wonderful. Maybe you'll find time to visit the Asher Matatias is president of the B'nai B'rith of the 5 towns, that you could come and talk to them, because the issues of mental and physical health are issues that everybody has everywhere. So your hands-on background is so unusual that I think would be fascinated.
I would love that, and I'll bring some bagels and cream cheese.
We will provide that for you.
We'll have a good visit, but I just have to say goodbye right now because I have to get ready for my next program.
All right, Laura.
So you know
I'm
what?
sorry that I didn't mean to make this, you know, short, but I really value everything we're talking about, and I'm looking forward to our next show, and then I can see you, all of you in person. It's just hard at work on the cell phone trying to do this.
Don't worry about it. We think long term, and we're just getting warmed up. Like, who is it? Al Pacino said what? What did he say?
What did he say?
Laura?
Thank you. Thank you.
What did Al Pacino say? He said something.
I'm just getting warmed up.
Oh yeah, sensible woman. I'm just getting warmed. So have a wonderful day with your wonderful practices.
Thank you, and God bless you all.
All the very best. God bless.
Well, Laura.
Les and Astra and I will carry on the conversation.
Yes.
All right, I send you all a blessing and a big hug. Okay.
Okay, we have Dusty on our Refuah Shlema.
Thank you for praying for Dusty. That means so much to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, see you soon, Laura.
See you soon, Laura. Bye, guys. Bless. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a lovely weekend. All the best, Laura.
So
Tomorrow I take my my stitches out.
Wow. So refuah shlema, Asher. Hope it heals well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all right.
Well, why don't we continue for a little while? No law says a session has to be 2 hours. That's a hefty piece of time. It can be half an hour. The issue of this is a drama therapy seminar, which relates to, it really relates to mental and physical health.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be sick to be healthy, but why don't we, maybe we could talk about that. Like you're talking about what's going on in South Africa right now.
So I'll just mention a bit, and then the thing is that I will need to leave because there's a Maccabi Zoom that I have to do. We're going to be doing with Zichron Menachem, a very nice event over Sukkot, a charity event with Maccabi. So I'll let you know about that as well. And maybe the Root and Branch can be a bit involved with that also. Why not?
We're happy to help anyone. So we can conclude in a few minutes. When do you have to go, Les?
So that starts at 8, so I should really.
So you know what? We could conclude now if you want to.
And
So
then maybe you and Asher can speak privately.
Yeah, all right. So we'll finish this session and then put it up on the internet.
I want to thank you for the phone call.
Not at all. And you know what, Asher and Noel, I just want to thank you both because you guys are amazing. And I think you look at the big picture and it's such a pleasure to work with both of you. I cannot tell you. I look forward to it so much.
Regards to the friends at Zichron.
Lowell and Asher, I just want to mention, Lowell and Asher, there's a chemistry that you guys have. There really is. And it's unique and it's a bond and we must never take anything for granted. So I'm so grateful that I'm like part of this as well. And Lowell, you've worked very hard with the Root and Branch. You've worked really, really hard through the years and it should just continue to do well. And I must just mention, having Asher as a contributor, I think it's so wonderful for all of us. And I really value both of your opinions. So thank you for letting me also be part of this.
Regards to the people at Zichron Menachem, is that what it's called, the organization?
Yeah, it's a wonderful organization. They help cancer victims.
Right.
With all denominations. And
are they the ones who make the wigs? The wigs for people who lose the hair?
Yeah. Besides from other things, they have families coming in and they help the families, those that unfortunately have cancer with the children. So the families are invited to participate and they help families. It's just the most amazing organization. And it's here in Beit Vegan. So they've asked me to help them out as well. So World Maccabi are going to be helping to sponsor this fun run.
World Maccabee?
Yeah, actually.
World Maccabee as in the sports organization?
Yeah, they're going to have a fun run. Jerusalem fun run.
Do you do that? I've never done anything like that.
It can also be a walk. It can be a walk as well. I'll be doing the walk. I used to in my younger years do the run, but now I have to do the walk, the long walk. The long walk for charity. Okay, all the very best. Shabbat Shalom. And it's some
Shabbat Shalom, an easy fast. Yeah. And we'll be together when? Sunday or Monday?
Sunday's at...
let me see. Sunday, because it's Tisha B'Av.
Yeah.
Right. And next week we have some programs next week, and I'll send you the links to them.
Okay. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom, and it's some
Shabbat Shalom.
So Asher and I will continue the conversation and conclude it since Asher.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we're still recording. So
with what happened on Sunday.
What happened? What happened?
The march, the demonstration, no fear demonstration. Look at the result. There are many mea culpas. This is the headline of one local 5 towns paper. Can you see it?
Yes.
It says, Sunday's Noble Rally put spotlight on Jewish divide. What I've been talking about for so many years, the Goyim think that we are such an example of unity.
Right.
They haven't come not only to the 5 towns, but just in general, there is a lot of division. In part, it has to do also with something that we agree with you, that we both agree, that the mainstream Jewish organizations seem to have lost some of the sharpness, you know,
Right.
to, for example, to speak out against anti-Semitism, for fearing of attracting negative
Right.
attention, you know, or to denounce the squad, for example. You know, I mean, just because they're liberal doesn't mean that they are correct on Zionism and on Israel. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And this is what the article sort of stresses, that we have to be able to see evil, and when we come across evil, we should do something about it. In Manitoba, Canada, they are debating now whether circumcision should be allowed. Can you imagine circumcision? That's another manifestation of
Right.
anti-Semitism. This, so it is a mixed bag, you know. I called the editor to tell him that it's very nice that he should do more to bring us together. And I must say, I congratulate him for taking out from the masthead. This is the 5,000 Jewish Times for this week. No longer does the masthead in either paper say geared to the Orthodox community, to the Orthodox communities of the South Shore. What nonsense! The Jewish communities. That's all. You know. So
Well, you know the joke. I mean, even I know the joke that you
go
come
ahead.
to they come to the island and they find that one guy's on the island. He's Jewish. He has two synagogues, and they say,
Yeah.
"Why do you have two synagogues? One to daven and one not to daven in?"
Right.
I mean, it would be funny if it wasn't funny, but I mean, it's both funny.
It's
It's not
very
funny.
sad, unfortunately.
I didn't know until I got to Israel, this whole business of Mizrahi Jews, Ashkenazi
Yeah,
Jews.
yeah.
I didn't grow up, first of all, I grew up mostly with Goyim, and no one ever said anything to me. And all these issues and divisions, I grew up in it wasn't part of me growing up. When I got to Israel, it took me a while to figure out just how in Israel, I don't know how it is where you live, in the divisions. I was sitting in the yeshiva. Was there part-time in the winter of 1984. And someone looked at me from the other table. He didn't ask me, "What is your name?" He didn't say, "What is his name?" He just said, "Are you Gush, Aguda, or Mizrahi?" Meaning,
not even,
where
are you davening?
nothing. He wanted to know which group I'm part of, because in their world, you only exist as part of a group. Are you Gush, as in Gush Emunim, Aguda, as in Agudat Yisrael, or Mizrahi, as, now he wouldn't have meant Mizrahi in the term of Sephardi Jews. He would have been Mifleget Pauline. The National Religious Party was called the Mafdal. But in their world, everything's a division within a division within a division within a division. I visited my friend who lives in one of the Yishuvim north of Jerusalem. So his son was talking to another boy. They were having visitors from Kiryat Moshe, which is a neighborhood of Jerusalem. So the boy said to his friend, the guy who came from Kiryat Moshe was a chutznik, an outsider. So I thought, if to you boys, he's an outsider, what am I, a space alien? Because it's like Matrushka doll within a Matrushka doll within a Matrushka doll, that you divide this, and how long are your seat, and what. I had someone tell me once, take off that kippah, your kippah, because it's not your group. I said, what? It's just a kippah. It's black, it's embroidery, it's this way, it's that way. But
and the size, it has to be a certain size. Does it cover all of the head?
I've got a big one. It's just the back of the head. This was years ago. And someone said to me, "Why are you wearing a black kippah?" Because for them, the kippah you're wearing indicates the group you're part of. So this constant need to divide and subdivide and divide again and fight, this is not part of my experience. So I have a question for you, Asher.
Sure.
Aside from the way that Jews relate to or don't relate to each other in New York, in Jewish communities. I didn't really grow up in one. Like in the boroughs. What about the relation of the Jewish communities with other communities? Like in Queens, I once heard a radio program, I mentioned this before, the borough president was talking. I remember where I was. I was driving to Hartsdale, which is near where my parents live. And on the radio, the borough president of Queens, who was a lady, said, you know,
Claire Schulman, if it was
this
in
is
those
many
days.
years ago. And she
Yeah.
was saying, you know, in Queens, in terms of the size of Queens, we have more ethnic groups in one place than anywhere else in the world. Even communities of 2,000 or 3,000 people up the rivers in Laos. And the issue was, how do you deal with trouble? And she said, we're very well organized with the rabbis and the sheikhs and the imams and the gurus from all the different religious and ethnic groups. Usually it's kids, they're bored, they'll cause a little trouble. So we immediately bring in, the police get involved, everyone gets involved, they don't get put in jail, they get a little patch in the tuchus, and go do 20 hours of community service. And usually the social pressure stops the problems right away. So you have, how many people live in Queens? A couple of million.
These groups are very cohesive, and the communities are very cohesive. They usually take care of their own recalcitrant members. You know, if they misbehave, they will try to do it again under the presumption of what will the world think of us if this gets out. You know, so that serves as a kind of check periodically. But you're right. If they hang out, if they're beyond their circle, if they start with drugs and start cutting school, that's also an indication. If they cut classes, if they stay up late, that indicates that there may be a dysfunctional family syndrome that is operating, in which case you need intervention. And usually the ethnic groups that I'm familiar with in Queens, the Koreans and the Chinese, can you imagine in Flushing, you can actually walk for blocks upon blocks without seeing any English signs.
Wait, you live in Queens, right? You're
I
not.
used to live in Queens. Yeah,
Right now, are you you're in Long
Kissena
Island?
Boulevard, along Kissena Boulevard near Queens College. After we moved from Astoria, first we lived in Brooklyn. Then when my father got the store, the delicatessen grocery store in Astoria, we moved to Astoria. Then I got married. We moved to Flushing, and from Flushing in 1976. We bought the house in Woodmere in the Five Towns, and we've been here since 1976.
That's a while. Where you live now, what is the ethnic composition of the?
It's Jewish. It has a lot of a growing number of Bukharians.
Jews or general?
Jews, yeah,
Bukharian
Jews, yeah, Bukharian, and a lot of young people who feel entitled to own the house they tear down on the backs of their in-laws or their parents, you know, and so they're a little bit obnoxious at times, but nonetheless, and they're the ones who fund these papers with some of very right-wing religious thought, you know.
How do you, where you live now,
Yeah.
how are, in terms of drama therapy that Laura practices to get people to work out individual or group problems without killing each other, and she's very good at that. How are the relations between the Jewish and non-Jewish communal groups? Do they regularly meet, like in community boards, to discuss problems and issues? Yeah. Or, well, we need to clean up this street, or ask the city to pave that street, or put in some plants or swings in the public park? Yeah. How are the community relations where you are?
There is symbolic involvement of Black and Jewish groups around the observance of Martin Luther King birthday, for example. And the initiative usually is given to the only Reformed temple in decline right now in Lawrence to hold a ceremony and a series of speeches concerning Dr. Martin Luther King. Other than that, and such as the case of the demonstration, the rally against anti-Semitism, they rarely come together, unfortunately. You know, each of them tries to do his thing. You know, within.
I'll be right back. The cat needs water. So
Go ahead.
you continue.
Please.
Just hold on.
Yeah.
All right, come here. Come here. Here's your water. Don't tell me you don't got nothing to drink. Okay, the cat's been taken care of. We have 6
Look
of
at
them.
this. Another
happened now?
headline. APAC cancels its 2022 policy conference in Washington.
Why?
I wonder what that means. I wonder what that means. And I'm sure it doesn't have to do with COVID per se, but it's just the feeling that APAC in recent years has been identified increasingly with the more right-wing Jewish thought, political thought of the Republicans. You know, even though nominally they try to include many bipartisan, and this is the strength of Israel. To the extent that it has bipartisan support, Israel and Jews will thrive. The moment that, and it appeared to be a little bit waning in the last few years of the Trump administration. You know, a lot of people did not feel compunction to demonstrate their feelings because they thought that he had the inside track, you know.
Well, let me ask you a question that's not really related to Israel. I'm for myself.
Yeah.
I really people. How long have you been here? My body's been here 29 years, but my head is back in Westchester County. I really miss, especially in New York, the interaction of people from so many different ethnic and religious and cultural backgrounds. You do have here actually, but you don't really, it's not the same kind of interaction. You have people from many different communities, Jewish and otherwise, in one little place, but somehow it's not the way it is that I knew back in New York, and I miss that very much. I
know exactly what you're saying, Lowell, because a few years ago, Anna and I decided to do an experiment. We went to the tip of Manhattan and we walked, stopping and chatting and even drinking or whatever, all the way to our daughter's house or apartment on East 72nd Street. And it was an amazing experience.
Right.
You know, exactly what you're saying. I said, suddenly we would have the Lower East Side, and then we would be in the Flatiron section, and then in the theater district. And it was an amazing experience and education. And of course, we put a lot of steps on our watches. You know, today, for example, I walked 12,000 steps, you know, doing all my necessary things before.
I miss the kosher Indian Jewish restaurants in the 30s on 3rd or 2nd Avenue. Where is it? Madison Avenue.
The Carnegie Deli is no longer, by the way.
Oh. I like ethnic food, and in New York, so many restaurants are under proper kosher supervision.
They do.
And they're not expensive. I miss that very much. I have a question about, in terms of mental health, my own approach, I don't know what you'd call it. I think that, I mean, it would seem to be that in an advanced country, it shouldn't be a question. Every single person should have food, clothes, water, a place to live. And shouldn't even be an issue. That as a right. And most people are not lazy. They will work if they can work, but this shouldn't be an issue. And how is the poverty? I remember years ago, when was it? Even in the Jewish community after 2008, there were notices in the synagogues in Westchester, if you lost your job and you need a support group, so you don't
know the
commit
famous
suicide.
story about John Lindsay? When he became mayor,
Hmm.
he was approached by several Jews in his administration. You know that we have the issue of poverty. Get out of here. You are Jewish. There is no poverty.
I didn't know that, but I know at the end of his
listen,
life, he was in poverty. For some reason, he ended up
he
impoverished,
commissioned a
and
study.
Giuliani helped him out.
Yeah,
What?
I don't know whether there was cooperation there, but he commissioned a study and found that several 100,000 poor and elderly people, and he demanded to know, why don't they make themselves they don't avail themselves of the social services? And guess what the reaction was? They like it to keep it within the Jewish community. They don't
The
want
issue
to
of
be
shame.
embarrassed.
Right.
They don't want to be
That's the
embarrassed. They
problem.
felt embarrassed.
Yeah, this is exactly what we were talking about before we went on air. When I was, a footnote, at the very end of his life, John Lindsay, who had represented the blue blood silk stocking Upper East Side,
Yes,
became impoverished, and Giuliani arranged something that he'd have a special pension. How he became impoverished, I don't know, but he did.
I did not hear that at all. I know that
he
was predeceased by his wife, Mary.
He was what?
But they were fine people.
At the very end, when he was very old, he ended up for some reason destitute, and Giuliani helped him with, he got him some money somehow.
I see.
Let me make a note to send you about that. At the very, you would think, how would someone representing, East 65th Street end up impoverished?
Right.
And you were the mayor. I mean, you have plenty of opportunity for people to say, listen, I want you to give a speech on Wall Street. We'll pay you $20 million, which is a nice way. Or I got a book deal for you. We'll have it ghost written. Put your name on it. We'll give you advance of $40 million. I mean, in those circles, there's all sorts of ways of getting people money and making it look legal. Somehow, he ended up impoverished. That's Lindsay, Giuliani.
That I truly have not
I will
heard.
send it to you, Asher. So here's my question. Right, so we were talking about mental health in Israel. And I was saying that in the year that I was a volunteer at Hadassah Ein Kerem, from January 2019 until January 2020, and then all this stuff started with lockdowns and masks. They told a lot of volunteers to go home except for absolutely necessary. So I had occasion in my volunteer work to go to one of the psychiatric wards. They had one for kids and they had one for over 18. They had a separate one for people who are criminally insane and violent, Hannibal Lecter types. The one I went to was with regular people. So when I got there, I noticed there was almost no Arabs. So the orderlies, the nurses, the male nurses, a lot of Arabs go into nursing, and programs were set up for them. They're very kind and patient, and there are there's a big nursing in the Arab sector in terms of employment. Thousands of Arabs, young men and young women, go into nursing. And so the 4 guys in the psychiatric ward were young Arab men. They're also very strong. You have to be in case there's a problem. So I said, is this discrimination? Is it racism? Where are all the Arabs? And one of them said, you don't understand. I said, what? He said, in our culture, to be sick, where you're crippled or retarded or physically or mentally crippled, is a big ashanda. And so we wouldn't even approach Hadassah, assuming it even had place, because of the shame.
It's a
And
good
that's,
thing that they didn't kill them, you know.
I see what you mean. Like the ancient Greeks and Romans, you didn't like your child, left
Yeah,
it out to die.
it-
You know what? Let me check
off the
about
cliff,
that.
off the cliff, you know. Yeah.
I don't know how, if we're mentally ill people killed in Arab society. I know you have the story of King David, and he goes and he runs to the Philistine city, and the king sees him, and they recognize him, and David starts to pretend to be crazy because he's afraid he'll be killed. And the king says to his advisors, according to our tradition, the king's wife and daughters were crazy, said, "Why have you brought me a mad person? I don't have enough madness. Drive him away." But even back then, there was a taboo.
Right.
You don't kill crazy people. You don't torture them. You don't kill them. They maybe they have special souls. You'll be cursed. You don't bother them, and that's good. I mean, think of it said, look,
More
we'll use
humane.
them for slave hunting or entertainment. They didn't do that. So as far as I know, people are mentally and physically retarded in the Arab world and not killed, not like with the honor killings, the dishonor for ladies, but they are hidden. It's like what you were saying about poverty in New York. Mayor Lindsay, who is a big, tall, handsome Irish guy representing John Cheever Wasps on the Upper East Side, said, "What? Jews are all rich, right? What do you mean poverty?" And you were saying that the answer to him was because of the shame, the shanda. So in the Jewish communities, it was more hidden. That's my question now, especially with all the troubles, real or imagined or right or wrong, the policies of the last year. I'm not even going to deal with the issue where they justified, they weren't justified. I'm going to simply deal with the issue of what the results were. Isolation, teen suicide skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Old people, you can't visit your grandkids. Suicides, deaths.
It means that we are social beings, you know, we
Right.
need each
So
other.
that's what I'm going to ask you is,
That's why you're doing a yeoman's job in bringing us together. You know,
well,
can you imagine what the webinars have done to sort of equalize a little bit the deficit in mental health?
well, in
Only to a certain extent. I understand. It's
in
not
the
the
lecture
same.
series, in the Zoom has really helped us because
Yeah.
I'm not very technological, so I was forced to learn it. But actually, I'm sitting in my kitchen, you're sitting in your study or a family
Right. My
room,
office. Yeah.
and I'm more connected with the world now in this kitchen than I ever was before,
Is
all
it
over
true?
the world.
Yeah.
So that's true. One of our goals is to bring people together from different religions and cultures, and we've just begun to do that. I used to ask myself many times, why doesn't someone do this and someone do that? And I said, forget about that. Just what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Okay, you have a kitchen table, you have a computer, you pay $14.95 a month for Zoom, and you can have a 24-hour session, up to 1,000 people participating. Just, what is that quote that she said from Al Pacino from Scent of a Woman? We're just getting started.
We're just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, in rabbinic thought, wherever we are on the endless, we're always just getting started because the road to God is forever. So it has beginnings, no
So
ends.
25 years ago, did you have the equivalent of Zoom? How
Nothing. This is very new. What we would
How
do,
was it in the beginning?
we would have the talks at the Israel Center, and we'd have a live studio
in
audience.
person, on
Yes,
site.
up until a year ago in the Israel Center. And then it was still very expensive video equipment was very expensive.
You would do videos, I see.
And finally, as the prices came down in the last few years, so I forced myself to buy a video camera. The first one was $35 and the other one was $295 or something from B&H in New York, and started to record the programs. Then the Israel Center got set up for the internet. It took I knew you could do like podcasts. I didn't do any of that. We'd have a lecture, we would record it, and then we would post it. Now with this Zoom stuff, we can have a live studio audience worldwide. not just an audience, a panel for a discussion. And when I straighten out my Google settings, we'll be able to have live feed to various platforms. I only had that in the last year.
Did you have as varied a clientele as you do now? It appears?
Amazingly, yes.
Yeah.
As we would put little notices in the Jerusalem Post event section, and people passing through Jerusalem looking for something to do at night
I see.
would come, and they would identify themselves. They would come from all over the world. I said, how did you hear? Well, I heard about it from a friend, or I read about it somewhere on the internet once the World Wide Web started in 1998.
Yeah. Very creative, very creative.
We started in January 1995. So word gets around, oh, when you're in Jerusalem, you know what to do, so means to go to their lecture series. And it tried to make it as
wasn't daily. Was it daily
Huh?
or weekly? It wasn't daily in those days. Was it
well,
daily?
there was a point at the very beginning, I was doing like 4 programs an evening in the first
one
few years.
evening?
Well, I would do 4 days a week.
Oh, 4 days a week, yeah.
Then sometimes I did less, sometimes I did more, sometimes
For
I
an
was in
hour or
America.
2 hours. So
The way we usually did it was, it depends when we started, because the Israel Center would close at 9:30 p.m. and they would lock up the building. So if we started at 8, we had an hour and a half, and we always had, people liked our programs, they wanted to stay and talk.
of course.
And then the guard would say, I have to shut the lights off and lock the doors. So you guys gotta go. So if we started, what I need this tie for, if it's a little bit warm here, I bring in the fan. If we started at 7, so we had more time, 7:30, less time, 8. We had to be out at 9:30. Now with Zoom, we don't have to be out. So as you know, in some of our programs, we went on for 5 hours with people. I mean, I would have left. Les was still there. I think you were there. And some of our for 3, 4, 5 hours, which is fine with me. People take the trouble of getting together on Zoom.
Yeah.
Why, just because I have to go, should they stop talking? Yeah, we had that. We had that. So this is all new. The
That's why you
isolated.
give homage to the organizers of those early
Yeah,
years.
that's right. Today I had to cut short the introduction, and Hanania, who hosts one of the seminars, said, 13 minutes is long for an introduction. He's right. But I mean, there's a reason why I mention those things, to always Hakarat Tov, say thank you. Because
Absolutely.
the Israel Center could have said, it's very nice what you do, but what does it have to do with us? But Phil Chernovsky, who's a Renaissance man, said, wow, you're bringing in all these people from all over the world to talk on all sorts of subjects, because that always interested me. That was in college and high school afterwards. That's why I had a weekly program on Swarthmore College Radio called Music of the World and Other Tidbits. What were the other tidbits? The students and the professors. And when you're on a college campus, you're a professor. No one ever has a lack of anything to talk about. Right?
That's why, I notice in the months that I've been associated with you, that you broach subjects that are very, very sensitive sometimes. And that's where Kerem, Yitzhak contributed. I was not, as a Sephardic Jew, I was not aware about the discrimination or the kidnapping of children in the early part of our history in Israel, etc.
In terms of those subjects, because the Root and Branch Association is so small, and it's not part of any system or structure. It's not financed by anyone. Well, I can pretty much talk about whatever I want. And it seems to me that, you know the play by Garcia Lorca. He was killed in the Spanish Civil War. He was a playwright.
I know.
I
studied him.
House of Bernardo Alba. And what does Bernardo Alba say? This oppressive Spanish matriarch to her restive daughters, there will be silence in the house of Bernardo Alba. Well, I'll tell you what my father and mother said from their law practice. My mother was my father's office manager for 10 years, from 1952 to 1962 in the South Bronx. An issue came up here, something was unpleasant. My wife saved a little girl who was being abused by an older man who went, and because of her intervention, he got put in jail for 8 months or something. This was back in 1995 where people were less conscious. You didn't talk about that stuff. And two rabbis that I knew, who I respected, knew about the situation, ran away from it. And I was very mad at them. And my father and mother were much more, they said, listen, you don't understand. Most people don't run away from trouble, however they define it. It's not because they're bad, they know what to do. And whereas if you're down in the South Bronx, rape, murder, mugging, everything you think of, it wasn't corporate law, it was little people law. As my father said, trouble abounds in the ghetto and will find you quickly. So my parents were used to dealing with things that most people don't want to talk about. It's not because people are bad, it's because often they don't want to know what to do because it's scary. Things can be right in front of your face, like homelessness, drugs, prostitution, all sorts of horrible stuff. Say, look, that's right around the corner. I didn't know, and I don't know what to do about it. So don't tell me about it. And Oprah Winfrey. So what was the issue? Why did I mention that? I can bring up subjects that other people wouldn't touch because, for example, the one you mentioned, the case of bluntly, the mass murder of Mizrahi children in the 1950s, of which the cover story is, yes, Yitzhak has always fought for them. The cover story is that they were kidnapped. That's not the real story. But this is very scary stuff. And then you want to say, what? The first health minister who was a eugenicist, Dr. Chaim Shiba, did that to our own kids 10 years after the Nazi T4 program, 39 to 41. How could Jews do that to each other? And so you have a conspiracy of silence where it's embarrassing. And well, let's not talk about it because it doesn't make my group look good. So
it's remarkable that it is Netanyahu who went along to expose it now and to sort of make amends.
Well, actually, they didn't make amends. What they said is, you take money on the grounds, you'll drop all your claims. So usually in the state of Israel, when there's a commission of inquiry, it's to cover up the crimes of the higher-ups rather than to expose anything. But that's the way groups are. It's let's look at the Dreyfus trial. Who was the one who exposed it? It was a French goy, Colonel Picot, who he didn't like Jews, but he was head of French counterintelligence, and he knew Dreyfus was innocent, was being framed. So he went to see his general and said, Mon Général, this Jew, he didn't do this. And the general said, well, for the sake of France,
unity of some sort.
We have to make him the sacrificial lamb because it will cause trouble if Colonel Esterhazy, whoever it is exposed. So he's going to be the Jesus on the cross. He'll take the sins of everybody else, the Sundenbach, the goat over the cliff. And Picot said, I don't agree with that. So they sent him off to the colonial wars in Tunisia, hoping he'd get killed, like David with Uriah the Hittite. He didn't get killed. So the question is, why would a goy, a non-Jew, who he didn't even like Jews, do this? Because for him, it was an issue of justice and righteousness. And they tried to kill him. And then there was Emile Zola. So then you'd say, how does it benefit a society to cover up a crime? And for some reason in societies, as I like to say, sheket is not shalom. Silence is not peace. But what we would call neurotypical, normal people, the way we deal with trouble is silence is peace. If you don't talk about it, it's not there. And people who are victims of rape, murder, torture, whatever, you threaten the social order, not the pillar of society who may have committed the crime. And this is in all societies, everywhere.
I bring that in the case of the Orthodox Church. Only yesterday, I had a tete-a-tete with the just retired assistant to the Archbishop cleric. And he said, Ash, it takes time. I said, yes, it has taken 2,000 years. And you promised me that before you retire, you will advance the needle a little bit. I don't think so. I think there is a problem. He said, well, our Savior is a Jew. I said, it brings shame to you and your people to have a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, having his people being persecuted by people like you. He did not answer me. He understood. I said, you are dishonoring your own tradition by insisting on every day going to chapel and praying with a catechism that the Jews are perfidious because
Right.
they did the crucifixion, and it just
All groups, all groups. For example, in the religious community, religiously observant community here, if you want to sound moral where it doesn't cost you anything, you say, gee, we need more stricter kashrut observance or more Shabbat observance or more attention in davening or don't do Loshen Hora. That doesn't cost you anything. That way you can feel moral. Say, well, okay, Rabbi, should we also talk about sexual abuse in the yeshivot? Oh, no, we don't touch that because that starts to cost some. Then somebody has to be prosecuted. It's like no fault, cost-free morality.
homosexuality,
The whole
plus
thing,
so
whatever it
many
is. If it's easy to try to sound moral if it's not going to cost you anything in your community because someone has to be exposed for theft, murder, rape, torture, or whatever. And so that way I can feel moral where I didn't actually have to do anything. I'm for Motherhood America and a hot lunch for orphans. Well, who isn't? So that my parents said from the law practice, don't get mad. Remember in Heinrich Ibsen's play, The Enemy of the People, their whole income depends on the waters in the spa. The doctor discovers that they're polluted.
By the way, I have so much respect for your late father, may rest in peace, from your introductions. It is a piece of wonder that a white Jew in the middle of the ghetto could offer such services that are so essential.
Well, it was like this. It was 1952. We didn't want to go to work for a white shoe law firm, which they didn't want a Jew anyway.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to do corporate law, and he wanted to set up his own practice. So my grandfather.
This is meat and potatoes law,
Very.
You realize
people with body odors, as he would say. That
exactly.
His first office was a table. My grandfather was a contractor and did home repairs, and he had a little storefront with a toilet seat in the window that he sold. And there was a desk there. He said, okay, Martin, your law office, there's the desk, there's a chair, get going. That's how it started. And he didn't go there because of poverty. He just went there because Grandpa was there, and he started giving free lectures to the Puerto Ricans had just come up after 1945.
He was idealistic. You can give him credit for being idealistic.
He didn't think of it in those terms. They're people, they deserve to be represented. It
Right.
was, I grew up with this. I was in the Puerto Rican Day Parade when I was 4 in 1960. Then there was the Spanish Day Parade. It wasn't that he was thinking, I'm going to help the poor. They're just people, and they need legal services. So what happened was some macharim in the community liked him. He was around 30, and they took him under their wing and they introduced him to everybody else. And it wasn't like he was one of the lawyers. There were no lawyers. And he also cared. And so the practice grew very quickly with a huge turnover of little people law. Then they knew he cared about them, and he would fight for them. and his fees were very low. And they're very proud people in general. Even if they couldn't, they would bake. If they couldn't pay a fee, they would bake a cake. Or my
It
mother
was a
has.
one-man legal aid society. I mean,
Well, it wasn't. He had some other lawyers come to work with him, and then he had to practice with a number of associates, mostly Jews who came from backgrounds where they wouldn't feel uncomfortable in the South Bronx. And when he got older, so that his junior partner took over the firm. So Gallen and Newman became Newman, and then Carnes, Mike Carnes joined them 1990. And it's still there today on 161st Street and
isn't that nice?
opposite the county courthouse. So why did I
Really?
mention that? That they said normal people anywhere are frightened of stuff like if in your community someone is doing stuff they really shouldn't be doing. Most people just want to keep things quiet. I have enough trouble when I need your troubles. Don't tell me, don't know. I don't know what to do anyway. That's also another issue is like, even if I know, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. When you're a combat lawyer, as he would say, you do know what to do and you do know where to go. So in most societies, anywhere, trouble is swept under the rug. Scandals are swept under the rug. And the person who wants to expose them, like Colonel Picot with Dreyfus, they try to kill him. This is true anywhere. So that's human nature in our fallen state. That's just the way it is. So that's why I keep asking you, how are the relations with the groups, to the extent there are any relations? And I like to bring the example of the Buddha Bodhi restaurant, 6 Mott Street, under, I think, Satmar supervision, vegan, kosher. You go in there in the winter, at this table where the Streimels are sitting, they come over the bridge from Brooklyn, Satmar, and at that table, the Buddhist monks. That's New York, and I like it. And it's, they have, that's, you know, your New York, that's my New York. And I really miss New York.
For the last several years, in my capacity as president of B'nai B'rith, I've been trying to reach out to Muslims, frankly. There is a mosque in Valley Stream, and I've written to them, I want that kind of interaction. And I don't know who did what, but there is a national organization called MALA, Muslim American, some kind of league. And they hold periodic seminars on the web. And they have invited me. So a very tiny, I don't know what it means, but periodically I am the token Jew on a panel to talk about Muslim-Jewish relations or lack thereof, you know. So you mentioned the wonders of American society, but there is still a lot of work to be done with making the Muslim community more mainstream or more welcoming. I understand that they are.
Wait a minute, with Muslims, remember, I did that book for 3 years.
Yeah.
Under supervision of Muslim scholars, and to get the copy of the Quran by Abdullah Yusuf Ali that I wanted, I actually went to Brooklyn or Queens to a group of Shiite Muslims from Pakistan where their publishing house was in the basement, and they kept a very low profile. There, as in the Music Man, one of the songs is "You Gotta Know the Territory."
Yeah.
That you don't want to be talking to Wahhabi groups. They are very dangerous. The Muslim Brotherhood, the Al-Qaeda is murder and murder. The Muslim Brotherhood is let's put on a nice front and murder. They are very dangerous. Jews don't have the background to know who's who and what's what. The Muslims, they do know. I remember when Sheikh Palazzi came to talk at a school in Englewood, where it was March 2001, and we were hosted by Susan Rosenbluth, who lives there, of the Jewish Voice and Opinion. And so he spoke at the school, and one of the Muslim children came up and said, "Oh, Sheikh Palazzi," he was a Sunni sheikh and also a Sufi leader from the Qadariya Sufi order. She said, "I'm so glad to hear you. we have a Wahhabi mosque. My parents won't let me go there because most Muslims are not Wahhabis.
No.
Most Muslims are Sunnis and Shiites. They don't like Wahhabis.
Right.
And the Wahhabis are a very small group, but they're the ones who, like the Council on American Islamic Relations, Sheikh Palazzi nicknamed them, the Council on American Ikhwan Relations, they should be shut down as a terrorist organization. This is over the head of the Jews who deal with them. They don't have the theological background. It's not about theology. You have to follow the money and the murder. To distinguish between most Muslims who are Sunnis and Shiites don't want to murder anybody. But outsiders don't know the difference. And it's the Saudi Arabian, supposedly there's a new Saudi Arabia, I'll believe it when I see it. And the Gulf states are most of these, the Al-Sabal, the Al-Saud, the Al-this, the Al-that, they sit on the oil. And so it's their version of Islam, which is the public face people see in Europe. And they're the ones who fund the big mosques, not the Stiebelach, but the actual Muslims, like from Turkey and Germany, they're not Wahhabis. And they don't like Wahhabis. Wahhabis don't like them. But that gets into a whole nother issue, again, of knowing what people believe and to what extent they'll act on their beliefs. But let's say normative Muslims as Islam, normative, what does that mean? As the churches and the Muslims have defined themselves as they have developed, Wahhabis are a tiny fraction of the world Muslim population, but they're almost 99% of what are known as Muslim terrorists. And Jews are not, and Americans, you don't want them in the military. They've been infiltrating, and who's been bringing them in? They're partners in crime in the Anglo-American oil and bank establishment.
I'm thinking of the Muslim communities in general as, I have to believe, hardworking people who want to assimilate, and I think that is the beauty of America. So some of that edge of extremism, if they come in with that, will wash out, I think.
When you're dealing with Muslims from Bangladesh or Pakistan or India, remember, the Arab world is only about 200 million people. Most Muslims are not Arabs. And as soon as you move out of the Arab world to the Muslims of Central Asia, in a totally different universe. And they want to...
What is happening with the Taliban in Afghanistan, I worry more about the Pakistani Muslims than anybody else. Well,
the Pakistani Muslims are primarily Shiite with a Sunni minority, but the Wahhabis have the money. Now, the Taliban are they're ethnic Pathans who follow an Indian version of the Wahhabi heresy called Deobandism from the city of Deoband. And then you get into issues of who's funding them, who's financing them, how did they get into power? And that gets into all sorts of nasty areas that nice people wouldn't want to talk about in terms of the Saudi, American and British intelligence agencies. So why would they want to fund people like that? What about heroin production? What about the Chinese communists? That's a whole nother issue. But Muslims in general in the West and in the United States want to maintain like their communities, like in Queens, while also being part of the general society.
There are Muslim communities in Brooklyn also, on Fulton Street,
When Sheikh Palazzi was visiting, I wasn't in America at the time. My mother drove him to the airport, and you lived near the airport, or do you still live near the airport?
Of course.
And he saw a certain mosque, and he said, that's a Wahhabi mosque, because of the way the domes, the way they designed it.
There is one huge off the Van Wyck Expressway.
I know what you're referring to. So
I don't know what kind of mosque is that?
But you would really need, you would like
Azur top.
I know exactly what you're referring to. What you or other people in the Jewish community would need to deal with Muslims is a kind of Muslim squanto, the one who helped the Puritans plant fish, who knows his own community, said, you know what, these are kosher, those are not. And we're dealing with the issues of murder and torture and terror and all that. Because we were outsiders, we wouldn't know that. The only reason I know anything that I know, and I have to brush up on what I know, is because I learned it from Muslims. Not from secular
And
Gentile
from
or
your
Jewish
study,
scholars of
from
Islam.
your research.
Yeah,
from
but
your research.
the ones who supervised it were Muslims. Sheikh Bukhari, head of the Uzbeki Muslim community in Israel. He died some years ago. Sheikh Palazzi, we don't know if he's dead or alive or disappeared. I'm hoping he's gone into hiding. And they were my guides. And there are, you have to know who to talk to. And I really have to brush up my contacts in this area to see if I could find you. There are good.
I would like,
I have to renew this. I don't like to talk. I'm very superstitious about talking about things I didn't do yet. I have all sorts of
no, but
things
you did
on the
with
planning
the
stage.
Pashtuns.
Well, we're just getting started with that. We're now having the monthly seminar, but I don't even like to talk about what we have planned there because I believe it attracts, you know, demonic forces. It's better to do things than to do about it, but not talk about what you're going to do. You'll see soon enough.
But I also worry about those principles, you know, the ones that you brought. And I raised that question about their own safety. I mean, can you imagine their society has gotten so terrible that they cannot even
You mean
exist.
about the violence in the Arab Hamulot here in Israel is characteristic of the violence of the clans from Morocco to Pakistan. That's just their society, Arab or non-Arab. You know it also from yourself, from the Balkans and Greece, all the clans, the Hatfields and the McCoys, the Montagues and the Capulets.
Right.
This is part of the world you come from. So look, the clans in Scotland, the whole world, everybody's fighting with everybody else. That's why that's why I keep coming back with Laura with drama therapy or connections between groups in Queens and Brooklyn's and metropolitan New York. I have to let the cat in 1 minute.
I'll do whatever I can
They
to
work.
help her.
That's what I keep driving at. I keep wanting to know because I'm not there. To what extent do they talk to and work with each other? I'll be right back. The cat wants to come in. I'm back now. So this is in terms of drama therapy, helping people work out problems, especially young people who have a lot of energy. You know, it's no secret, most violent crimes are committed by boys between age, 15 and 25?
Right.
Everywhere. So how do, this is why I keep coming back to ask you, Laura and you, about that. And I really think that Laura, with her skills, has skills that any group, you know, in the old days, we would play charades as a home game in the evening to keep entertained. I think what she has, you could call it drama therapy, it sounds glamorous, but that it's a good way for people to interact with each other from different communities in a non-threatening way, role playing. You do community theater.
There was a special the other night on PBS about a young man, another young man in 2014 who was found hanged in North Carolina. It turned out to be a modern day lynching.
Really? And was he black?
A black boy. Terrible. He was born in 1997. He died 2014. I mean,
was hanging from a tree?
Hanging from a tree. So there is a community there in North Carolina, interracial community, that reenacts such episodes, you know, from history.
That's a kind of drama therapy.
That is, and I saw it, and my backbones I felt chills up and down my spine, so realistic to actually work out based on court documents and testimonies how the murders were done, and some of them killing them repeatedly. I mean, shooting at them repeatedly, even though in one case a woman was expecting, was pregnant, and then on top of it to club them. I mean, there is no sense of decency
Well,
anywhere.
well, you're getting to the psychology of mob violence, which goes back to the beginning of time. Apparently, it's also in the animal world. For example, we think of dolphins as wonderful creatures, and apparently the scientists have now found that the dolphins we think are so wonderful, they can have wolf packs that will gang rape dolphin young ladies and or kill them. So you're dealing with the evil inclination that's in the animal. Monkeys from different clans can actually literally tear each other, eat each other up alive. I mean, some animals are not predators, and that doesn't apply, but many are. And to this is what I keep asking about, the drama therapy and the community relations, where how does a society protect itself from the predatory instinct within all of us as individuals? And who said a group usually takes on the characteristic of its lowest common denominator? Some sociologists said that. And this can happen with any group, anywhere, with anybody at any time. Maybe some more, maybe some less. That's why I keep asking, and you said that most of the groups that have ethnic cohesion, the elders keep the young, keep the young ones in line, mostly. That is what the borough president of Queens said, that the responsible elders in the many, many different communities, kids are a problem everywhere, keeping busy. My father was always giving money to the police athletic league.
Right.
Get him out of
get him out
to play basketball. That's why I keep coming back to this, because that's why I keep asking you about that, and I keep asking Laura about that, and I will keep asking about that.
Very good. And police is really a social agency. It's not necessarily a punishing agency, and to the extent that out of this tragedy of the George Floyd episode will come some reform and some reallocation of resources to involve young people, to give them hope, to give them education, to give them health, to give them, I don't know, new aspirations. You will see immediately everything will drop. The crime rate will drop. The violence.
Then you're getting to a problem that started in the 1970s with the planned deindustrialization of the United States by, as we've discussed before, some of the great families and the corporations and tax-exempt foundations that they control, where they started to shut down all over America factories and move them to China. Now there's an attempt. I'm not even getting Trump, Biden, anything. There have been people who believed in moving factories back. I think that makes a lot of sense, because if you live in a rural area, unless you're dealing with like Germans or Chinese or Koreans, where you can put them anywhere, and in 15 years you have an opera house and you have a university, and they will simply a self-propelled engine of development. Most people need a little help. And if you're in the middle of Tennessee or someplace, well, the work is, I mean, again, in the future, wouldn't it be nice if people can be trained to open small farms and small businesses? That for the future, and to learn how to use the internet to buy and sell goods and services, and not just think, well, I get out of high school, I got a job in the factory. But it's better to have a job in the factory than no job. So,
and it used to be for life in those days. For life.
What I learned from my friend Reuven, who's a syndicalist socialist, where the workers own the companies. He's a syndicalist. He said that when he grew up in Brooklyn in the 1950s, he's in his 70s now, his father, who drove a delivery truck delivering dairy products could support a wife and two kids.
With one
Where
wage.
one father, one wage, and a working man. And that should be normal. That should be, you get out of high school, even if you go to high school, you can have a job for life and a well-paying job. I remember John Hulley, I keep talking about the guy who taught me how the world works, the big boys, he said, I don't understand the Rockefellers and the other great families. They're deindustrializing the United States and moving our factories to China. Do they really think from long distance they can control the Chinese? What are they doing? John was in his last years, he started to write and research this. This was a guy who understood stuff like this. At a time when no one even talked about it. He said it doesn't make any sense to him because the Chinese may say, thank you very much, but we don't need to be your house niggers. So we're very glad you decided to reindustrialize China. But if you think we're, serving mint juleps and step and fetch and house niggers for you on your country clubs, well, we've been around for 5,000 years of civilization. Right. Thank you very much and goodbye. You can shine our shoes. And John kept asking, why, what are they doing? Penny wise, pound foolish. And that these people viewed themselves as members of a class that had no allegiance to the United States as a country. And again, this isn't a Republican Democrat issue. No, this is a money issue. Follow the money. And
also there is an arrogance in our believing that society will improve, will be service-oriented, will be professional, and we do not need at all the lower stratas of, the workers, the 9-to-5 kind of labor.
There are, as we both know,
and that's
there are
not
people
realistic.
In ruling class circles who believe in euthanasia and eugenics, which is a polite term for medical mass murder.
Of course.
Whose attitude is, it's his historic attitude. We were in Greece, we have too many slaves. What do we do with them? We kill them. We can do that through disease, starvation. We have too many people, have a war. Senator Morgan, I remember when I used
yesterday, somebody was quoted from Newsmax, I don't watch news, who said, the pandemic is a way of controlling population. I mean,
you know what? If you look historically, whether things occur naturally or not, whether it's from God or from man, one of the ways populations have been reduced. In the Roman Empire, the Roman Empire, before it fell, apparently there was a huge epidemics which decimated their populations. Look at in the 1300s.
Periodically, I know, historically we have that, yeah.
So,
but that doesn't mean we should not attack the pandemic, or we should not try to minimize it. There is a worried bit of news that came today that it's a summer uptick to cases and deaths connected to the. There is an uptick this summer in the cases reported and deaths reported, and here we thought that it was all one way going down.
Well, that's a whole nother issue of. Was it really from a Chinese lab? Is it germ warfare? Did it escape? Was it really let out?
They're going to get to that. They're going to get to that eventually, I'm sure. But
I want to come back to, before we conclude, the issue of drama therapy and communal intervention and social networks, which that in the future, in the future, worldwide, the world is so rich now. A number of economists have said that there's enough food in the world now, there shouldn't be any hunger. It's just not being distributed.
At the same time, there is drought everywhere.
And even with that, with proper planning like Joseph in Egypt, there's no reason there should be any poverty anymore in the world. It has nothing to do with you're a socialist or a communist.
No.
It's that these economists have said there's no reason there should be poverty. Then it also gets down to an issue of how one views people. Now, from a traditional Jewish position, the more people, the more mitzvot that can be performed. And who knows, maybe it's the next Einstein or the next Henry Ford with his factories, leaving out his opinions about Jews, or the next, I don't know, Pavarotti, or the prayers of that person will sustain the world. From our point of view, God wants more people. But even with the people, the idea the world is overcrowded. There are vast tracts of the world where nobody even lives.
That's right.
If
And we
that
are
depends on your attitude,
interdependent. That is the
very.
nobody can say, I did it myself. I don't need anybody. We
Right.
need each other. You know,
Right.
if we're going to find a way to live with each other and to live and to progress, we have to understand. And again, the role of government is just that. It's not socialist. It is, why do we set up governments? To not only safety, but also to improve the condition of those who are not so able to do it. It's, you know, you care. In caring, you bring people together, you vest them in loyalty, in a willingness to go and fight wars or whatever it may be. So I'm bullish. I'm hopeful that in the next few years, things will properly improve.
Well, let's hope so. Maybe you want to make some concluding remarks, Asher. We know that Laura had to go. She's at a psychiatric hospital. Could you say something? Again, a lot of things are hidden. People don't like to talk about them here too. And the information sorts of trickles out. This one committed suicide. That one had a breakdown. This one is on drugs. That family broke up. What is the situation in terms of depression, anxiety, homelessness, mental illness, unemployment in metropolitan New York? Is it as bad like it was in the Depression? Or is it worse? What's going on over there?
It is what it is, because I think there is more inclination to talk about it, to deal with it. And I think this is a phenomenon that is true in developed societies. You know, you mentioned, of course, how undeveloped or even primitive societies do away with anybody who is not a perfect individual.
Right.
But so to the extent that we understand, we are moving along that way, even with the drug situation. We do not incarcerate people, or we try not to. Try to find out
Almost.
how best to deal with this issue as a mental health issue. And who
Right.
knows, maybe we are moving, and I know we're moving towards less incarceration in general. We have the largest, nearly 3 million people behind bars. And of course, never mind if we break down the racial divide in this. We have to make possible, again, for mental health's sake, their reintegration into society. And some states are beginning to consider that, that when you lose your civil rights, when you are behind bars, it should not be a life sentence. You serve your sentence, you return. There must be a way to, again, with Laura's and many Lauras in this society, help to reintegrate those people and make them productive. They have paid their price, they understand the situation, and they have to be supervised and then let go. Let them fulfill their full attention, their potential. And to the extent that the Root and Branch Association is committed to bringing to the fore these issues. Hola kavod, I mean it. I take my kippah off to Lowell and to his assistant Les, and to anybody who is affiliated with this wonderful organization.
Well,
And I never stop talking about it. Of course, I'm promoting my own program, but there are so many, a myriad of programs. So,
well, we're just getting started, and
Exactly.
again, the attempt is to do it where possible from a traditional Torah perspective. Rabbi Yosha Friedman said, the Friedman Law, we judge a society by how it treats its weakest members. And if
yes,
one
yes,
actually reads the Torah, then we have 15 prophets. The
that is very
the
Jewish.
12
very
prophets are not
Jewish.
minor, they're just shorter books. Ezekiel,
Yeah.
Jeremiah, and Isaiah are the big ones. The others aren't minor, they're just shorter. If you
That's-
read them, they're screaming from A to Z about widows, orphans, strangers, the poor,
Bravo.
and you were strangers in the land of Egypt is over and over and over again.
Yes,
And you were given wealth. In one place in the Torah, it says, God gave you wealth precisely so you could help them. Then make it big mystical issues.
And
Why
it's
does
not your wealth. Who owns even that
It's-
wealth?
God owes everything, right?
God, exactly.
We will try
Thank
to
you.
we'll just continue to bring people from the general world and also people who really, she's looking for water, the cat, wait a minute.
You're bringing light and wisdom.
That's all we can do is, again, you know, someone both wrote and about you and I talked to them and said, Professor Gavin. I keep saying, I'm not a professor. I'm not a rabbi. I'm
It's
not a
okay.
doctor.
Just
I'm
call me
all in
Asher.
favor.
Asher.
That's why also today there's so much confusion about men, women. That's
Yeah.
why one person said to me, why when you describe your programs, you say Ms., MS, or Mr.? I said, because those aren't even taken for granted anymore. So at least we should say, what are you? Professor, Dr., Rabbi, Reverend, Ms., Mr. That's not even clear. Then maybe we need terms for people who are not this and not that. So we're going to continue to talk about, in the next 2 years, I don't want to, again, get the cat out of the bag. Stuff is going to come out. I think it's part of the messianic process that before we jump into the hyperspace of the 1,000-year messianic kingdom, this is a very traditional religious belief. A lot of garbage has to be cleaned away. How does it get cleaned away? By being exposed. And in terms of the Noahide laws and the death sentence for theft, murder, and rape, I've read some ways, rabbis who say, well, that doesn't literally mean you're going to be hung because you did this terrible things, but your shame and humiliation in being exposed is like being killed.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I'm talking about at the very top of the power structure in different countries, most of us don't do well with power, money, fame. Some of us do. It's a big test, much bigger test than poverty. Because poverty, you don't have any choices. When you're rich, you have choices. What are you going to do? So most of us do not do well. And in every society, everywhere in the world, there are people doing stuff because, well, I could get away with it. What are you going to do about it? So they are going to be exposed worldwide, including right here in the land of Israel, doing stuff that is not very kosher. They're going to resist that. And when those things come out, you're dealing with theft, murder, rape,
Of course.
sex slavery, when a euphemism is called human trafficking, even human sacrifice. Say, what, do people do that? When people ask me that, I say, if you look at the Bible and the records and of other ancient cultures, what would make you think they even stopped doing it? It's nothing new.
Right.
What would be new is if it stopped. Why do people do that? What are the weird ideas? That's a whole nother issue, but they do it. I remember when we lived on the Lower East Side, and there's a park, you will know where it is. Essex Street,
Oh, yeah.
East Broadway,
Yeah.
Grand Street, and then
By
there's
the way, the
Canal
Keilah
Street.
is nearby. The Keilah
Yeah,
is nearby.
that was my Keilah.
Exactly.
We lived across the street from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein's yeshiva in the amalgamated
All right.
building built in
I know
1929.
exactly what you're
We
talking
were in the
about.
park, and the Chinese, the old people, were doing their exercises.
Yes.
Our first baby,
Tai
Hamutal.
Chi.
Right. A young black lady came to us. This was the first I heard about it. She said, watch your baby. Why? Because there are people who would steal babies to engage in human sacrifice. We thought she was joking. And now I realized from my research, she was not joking. And she was serious. a child disappears in an instant, where do all the children go to? A lot of stuff is already starting to come out, and is going to involve very, very, I put powerful in quotes because only God has power, and the only real power is believing him and observing his commandment. People are doing stuff. It's not a lot of people. It never is. At the very top of the pyramids, who thought they were beyond prosecution because they were so powerful. No one's that powerful. And this stuff has to come out and be exposed. So the spin cycle, just get all the garbage out. You can't talk about a messianic era where, again, a Potemkin village where down the street on the other side of the tracks is all sorts of, that's not real. That's compartmentalizing your reality. The messianic era from our position means there are no more favelas in Brazil. Those are the slums. There are no more slums. There's no more, people don't fall between the cracks because the cracks aren't there.
Right.
Human minds get connected, so the psychic disturbance starts to go down. You have an end of theft, murder, and rape, sickness, aging, and death, poverty, and war, which has never happened in 6,000 years. But if people can talk about a messianic era from a Jewish point, you can't say, well, the world out there is a mess, but in my head, I'm redeemed. It's not, that doesn't work that way. In our tradition, you have to see everybody, and it's not, well, it's in your mind, well, my Messiah died, but I'm redeemed. And the world out there is a crazy house. So
look what we have as in our masthead.
Huh?
What does it say here?
I can't see. Move it back into the camera.
Yeah. All right.
To
live for each other.
Right.
To live with ourselves.
Right.
I mean, really caring for each other in order to be able to sleep at night and say, Asher, I did my
right.
all
This
that
very,
I could
very Jewish thinking. Very Jewish.
Very Jewish. Unbelievable. Thank you very much, Lowell.
Asher.
This was therapy. This was therapy of the highest.
Can you say some concluding remarks? Because tomorrow is Shabbat and tomorrow night is Tisha B'Av. Could you say something for our listeners? Something.
Saturday night.
Saturday night. But that's Tisha B'Av, and Sunday, hopefully, will be our last fast.
I hope there will not be any more.
Benediction.
Yeah. Amen.
So thank you very much, Asher. Thank you, Les. Thank you, Laura. And let's think where Les and Laura went. Laura went to deal with her patients in the Psychiatric Institute.
Probably.
And Les went to prepare a fundraising for Zichron Menachem and World Maccabee for cancer victims. I mean, that's, again, what we're all about.
And I'll give my wife the last FaceTime call now, because by you, it's already past what? Past 9?
It's 9:27 p.m.
Yeah. She
so,
may be...
regards to Mrs. Zorba the Jew.
She
From
does
Jerusalem.
an amazing belly dance. She knows how to belly dance.
Really?
Unbelievable. Yeah.
There's schools that teach it here in Israel. They exist, not just in our world.
She could do that. Take care. Be well. Regards to the missus. Take care.
Okay. Good night to everybody. Good night.
Good night. What is it? Wallabash. Good night. What's that phrase from?
Right. Jimmy Durante would conclude his programs as last year's saying, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are." And he would never say who Mrs. Calabash was, but it was thought that was a nickname for his, he had
George
one wife.
Burns, and what would George Burns say? Say good night,
Grace.
Gracie.
Yes, good night. Right.
Good night.
Good night.